It's Lee Judges TV for all my gooners, all my gunners. Yeah, you know where to be. Subscribe to the channel, cause you know it's a lot with the legendary judges and the one damn pot.
Yo, people, welcome back to Lee Judges TV. I've got some great guests tonight. I'm your host, Dan Potts, as always, and I'm with Lee Judges. Lee, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good. Thank you very much. All good. Had a busy week, haven't we? So it's been all right, though, you know. So looking forward to Sunday, looking forward to hopefully a busy week in the transfer window. Well, I hope so anyway, because otherwise, you know. Listen, I'm struggling to get a ticket for Brentford at the moment. Do you know what? I'm not that bothered.
Yeah, what the hell are we? Why would we bother? What the hell are we going to miss? I mean, we're going to miss Xhaka and El Neni in midfield, which we've seen for the last 6 years. So it's not really going to be too much to worry about, is it? But Lee, it's a pleasure, mate. And now you're a film star on Tonight with Lee Judges that we've been put on it. How have you found that, mate, in the studio? A bit different.
Yeah, a bit different. And I'll tell you what, it's a completely different thing. Being an interviewer, hosting a thing, to like just being one that just talks. There's no pressure, and like we're answering a question. Like I know you've got all the sort of questions sort of panned out a little bit, and you've got a little bit of help from the background. But when they're answering a question, you're thinking, "What's the next one like?" Do you know what I mean? So you ain't really listening to what they're saying at first, you know. But it's coming out all right, and I'm learning. I'm learning on the job. I'm a little bit like Mikel Arteta. I'm learning on the job.
You know how we feel. Talking to hosts, I have only gone and bagged a brilliant host. One of my favourite hosts is Elliot from Arsenal Vision. Mate, how are you? Thanks so much for coming on, man.
Yeah, good. I was really excited to be on, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to shave. I'm going to put myself together, and I have cut myself to the quick, essentially. So it'll be a race to see if the show ends before I bleed out, but I am here for as long as my body will allow it.
Well, listen, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. I know the chat are really excited to see you, and there's actually a really good sketching of you. And I don't know what you think, Elliot. How good have we done a job of drawing you there, man? I mean,
yeah, I prefer the sketch to the real thing. The one thing I will say is that, you know, I think when you sketch someone, what you'd ideally like to do is represent them in their best possible way. And I realize I have 2 young children, so I don't get a great night's sleep, but we didn't need to memorialize that in the sketch. I feel like the bags under the eyes. I mean, could just envision a world where I get a good night's sleep, and then let's do the sketch that way.
Listen, I'll provide that feedback to Dave, our sketch guy. But listen, man, it's great having you on. Elliot, I'm going to start with you because me and Lee have talked enough about what's not been going on, what has been going on in the transfer window. Before we start to come on to some predictions about where we're going to be this time next week, I just wanted to get your kind of idea of what you've made of things so far, and you know, are you excited about the new season? Because me and Lee are struggling to get into it, and I can't lie. What's your thoughts?
So I think it is hard, right? Because I think we sort of briefly got used to the idea that the transfer window closes when the season starts. That was kind of nice because you could just evaluate where you were when the curtain rises, and that's not the case anymore again. So now we're back to the situation where you can be starting the season feeling that you haven't done enough, but having to hold fire on your opinions because there's still time to sort it out. And I do think as we see the transfer window has been relatively slow this summer, so it may be the case that there's more of a supermarket sweep type thing that goes on at the end of the window this season. With Grealish now moving and Ings, and maybe Harry Kane pulling a Robin van Persie letter to the fans to get himself a move. You know, we may start to see things change for the better. I think the thing that's surprising to me is how hard it has been to get players out of the club. And certainly our inability to do that, I would think, is impacting our ability to bring players in, right? So it is a question of whether it's a chicken and the egg. Do we need to try to move on the Nelsons, the Nketiahs, maybe a Willian if it's possible, a Kolasinac if we can, Mohamed El Neni, Lacazette? Do those guys have to go before we can make any of the bigger moves we might have our eye on? I would say the thing that's hard is I would not have regarded center back as priority 1 going into the window. I'm excited about the player we've brought in. I think he's a good player. I think in the context of what we needed, you know, all the goals we didn't have last season, I'm very skeptical that fixes that issue. I realize that center backs are an important part of progression the ball, but I don't think he's going to bring us the goals. So if we finish this window having added that attacking midfielder and maybe gotten a striker to bridge the gap between the old ones we have and the young ones we have, I'll look back and say Ben White's a nice luxury signing and a good one for the future. As it stands right now, Dan, I think it's pretty clear that we are going to go into the season with a starting 11 that looks a lot like the one from last season. And given where we finished the last couple of seasons, I don't think anybody's going to say that feels like enough. Our hopes now seem to rest on whether Smith Rowe can ascend and Xhaka can ascend and Martinelli and Pepe and Tierney and the players that are sort of entering those prime ages can take us up a level, because that's what we're really relying on.
Listen, I think you've summed up well. And before I come to Lee, I want to get your kind of opinion on this, Elliot, because you touched on a positive. You know, we've got some youngsters coming through. You can kind of see, you know, I know that you speak to Clive a lot, and so do I, and we kind of see what we're doing in terms of the young crop of players that you're trying to look at. But I've got to get your opinion on this Granit Xhaka thing, Elliot, because me and Lee have a little bit difference in opinion. I do not like the player, okay? I did not want to see him in the midfield again this season. I accepted that he was going to go to Roma, but it looks now like he's staying. If he stays, I believe the manager likes him enough to be playing him and Partey next to each other as our midfield, which, let's be honest, got us 8th place. I wanted to see him out the side, not because I can't stand the guy and dislike him that much that I think he's terrible, just for the fact that we've not been able to progress for the last 5 years with him in the side. So why would we now be able to say he's our future, as what we're hearing from the manager saying, of a 4-year New Year contract? Why are we giving him a new contract? What's your thoughts on this one, Elliot?
So I think there's 3 layers to it, Dan, right? The first layer is it okay that he's staying, right? Does it hurt us that he's staying? And I think while most of us were ready for change, Granit Xhaka is not a bad player. Is he a player who can take us to the heights we'd like to reach? I don't personally think so. I don't think having Granit Xhaka in our team is a calamity, but there is a very fair question of whether you should just move him if the bid isn't reasonable. If Arteta likes him enough that he feels he has to keep him, and I would have taken the Roma bid. I think at some point, one of the things that's held the club back is a lack of decisiveness. You know, waiting for that Goldilocks moment, that perfect bid at the perfect time when it's obvious that it's time to move the player on. And there's not much in football that gets that easy. You have to take some risks. But the question of giving him the contract is a different question, because he was under contract until he'd be turning 31 years old. So if we wanted to keep him and we couldn't get a fee we liked, you could just keep him, let him play till he's 31, thank him for his service, and move on. But we've now raised his wages. He's going to be a year older next summer. So the odds that a better bid will come in when he's older and more expensive seems unlikely. So now we are saying this is another guy who's going to be here basically till he's done on a pretty solid wage. And when you start adding up all of those wages that are going to be holding us back in 2 or 3 years, Aubameyang on 300 grand, Willian on 200 grand, Xhaka on 130 grand, well, that's 600,000 pounds of wages that we can't dish out in a different way. So do I think Granit Xhaka is the root of our problems and a terrible player? Not remotely, but we didn't have to give him the deal. And my last point, Dan, really simple. Even if you think you have to do this, wait till September 1st. See what happens. Maybe Roma blink and they come back with a big bid. Maybe a midfielder you like becomes available somewhere else and you say, oh, we didn't think this guy was going to be available. Let's make that move. It feels kind of like one of those naive moves, but I think you're dead right. I think it tells us that this coach really likes this player and really wants him to be part of the project.
It does, and that's what worries me, because how many times is it now that he's almost left? We saw him almost go to Hertha Berlin, he's almost gone to Roma. Lee, I'll come to you on this point, because I know me and you were kind of agreed that we do not want to see him in the first team for the next 4 years. But you're a little bit different to me, that you're okay with him because you don't see, like Elliot said, him as a calamity. But do you agree with Elliot that you would have accepted that bid, Lee, and then tried to improve the team elsewhere? Or are you quite happy and content with Granit Xhaka in midfield?
No, I totally agree with what Elliot said. I would have took the bid. Somewhere along the line, you have to you have to take risks. It's the same with Willock. You got to take a risk with Willock. You got to let him go and then try and get somebody else in. Listen, if we'd have got, I don't say for instance, we'd have sold Granit Xhaka for 17 million, say for 17 million, 25 for Willock. You know, that's the money for Basuma. Done. You know what I mean? And I think then you've got an upgrade on Granit Xhaka, and also with us not being in Europe, we're not going to need such a big squad. So this is what worries me about Arsenal is, you know, you can go on about making mistakes on the pitch, which we do, but we're continually making mistakes off the pitch as well by doing these things. And Elliot's right now. We've got players we can't get rid of now. And we're going to have the same problem with Granit Xhaka in 2 or 3 years' time, when you know it's going to be an extra year and more money. I agree. The ultimate thing with Granit Xhaka is sometimes along the line, do you want an unhappy player? So by giving him a new contract and him signing it, he can't be unhappy. So I get what we're saying from that point of view. Listen, I'm not one of these Granit Xhaka haters and says, like, you know, oh, I hate him and all that and whatever. He does a job, but ultimately, he's not going to get us, as it says, into the promised land. He's not going to get us to top 5. In saying that, though, I watched him in the Euros against France, who one of the best teams in the world. He was absolutely breathtaking, outstanding. I know it's a different game. So if you was watching it and seeing Granit Xhaka, you thought, oh, I wouldn't mind getting him in our midfield. So I don't think he is one of the players when, you know, I don't like using the word dead wood and getting rid of all the dead, but he's not one of the players that you think to yourself, right, he is necessarily the first one out of the Arsenal. I think there should be 3 or 4 more before him. I think that, you know, we've got Eddie that we need to move on. I do think we need to move on Lacazette, because otherwise he's going to go into another year with a year left of his contract. I think that Maitland-Niles is another one where we can get money for and then invest that back into the team. And I don't care what anybody says about this transfer window at the moment. When you come 8th in the league, I thought we would really have made some real inroads and give us something to be excited about. And Elliot's right. Ben White's a very, very good signing, but unfortunately, he's not going to excite me, because at the end of the day, I know Ben White is not going to take me to where I want Arsenal to go. Yes, we're going to be a little bit better defensively, but ultimately, I watched Arsenal last season and teared my hair out. You know, I had a full set of locks before last season. You know what I mean, like ripping it out. But I see him week in, week out, particularly at home, of not being able to break teams down, particularly up until January. It got slightly better when Uligar come in, but it wasn't perfect. And now we're back to where we were again. And it does worry me. It really does worry me. And yes, it's great. But why haven't we gone out and got the man we want? And Elliot made a great point there. You know, it is now, we have to stay patient. We have to bite the bullet, because it's 4 weeks to a transfer. Even though it's only 1 week today, you know, by this time next week, we're going to be stressing out, because we don't really know what's going to be happening with the Arsenal. We just don't know what you're going to get. But ultimately, I know that if we had Ben White, say Aouar and Maddison in our team next week, I'll tell you what, I'll be fighting and looking at everywhere to get a ticket for that game. But this is moment I'm saying, well, so be it. I'm not excited about going and watching Arsenal anymore, because it's drained me. It's drained me. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and I'll be honest. I said to Michelle, like, today we're pick and choose games to go to. We're pick and choose. We're pick and choose away games, you know, to go to. And that's how I feel. And that's because, and it's not about winning and losing. It's about giving me hope. You know what I mean? I can't go, you know, like 8th in the league and you don't know what you're going to get. And as Michelle said, like last week, we had a great day at the Emirates until the Arsenal come on at 3 o'clock. You know? They ruin it, like, you know what I mean?
No, you're so true, mate. You're absolutely bang on everything you're saying. And before I move to Elliot Lee, I just want to touch on this midfield position now. Is that it? Do you see Lokonga, Partey, Aziz, Xhaka being our centre midfielders, or are we going to get another one in?
100% we get. Well, I think we get another 2. Because if they don't, I really do believe this. It is incompetence of the highest level from outside. If they don't do that, they spent 50 million, which is over the top. I get you've got to go over the top to get these players. We've gone over the top for a central defender we could have got away with. I'm not saying that we could have got away with to go into next week with El Neni and as our midfield. I'm sorry, been seen really from midfield and up front, and I think you're going to have to say this. You know, people go on about the defence. We miss chance after chance after chance. We continually miss chances. That's got to be addressed as well. That's not been addressed. So, but I have confidence in Arsenal. I see what's going on, little moves around it. We are looking to get players, but I think we've got to sell a few players before we can act. And I think by selling Willock, I know like people I'm quite pleased about that, because that tells me that they're selling Willock to fund something else.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And Elliot, I'll bring you in on that one, on both on our midfield and what we might do with it, and Joe Willock, because for me, Joe Willock is at a ceiling at the moment where I don't think we're going to get much more for him, even if he stays at Arsenal. What we don't want to do is a Maitland-Niles where he comes back, doesn't really play, and then he's worthless again. I don't think we're going to be in a situation again where 22 to 25 million we're going to be able to accept. So if we get that, good luck to him. I hope he does well at Newcastle, wherever he goes, because he's a good player. The reason that I don't think it's good business to keep him is because I just don't think he's going to play enough games. So I want to get your opinion on that. And are we going to strengthen our midfield? And I'm not talking about a James Maddison or a Houssem Aouar or an Erdegaard. I'm talking about the centre midfield. Or are we now content with Xhaka, Partey, El Neni, and Aziz?
If you get the right fee, selling is always okay. It's sometimes painful, but it's always okay. I don't think Liverpool wanted to sell Coutinho. Do you think they'd take that move back? Not in a million years, right? Heck, they sold Luis Suarez. It worked out okay in the end. Ultimately, if you get the right fee and you're smart and you're savvy in the market, you'll always be okay. So if the right fee comes in for Joe Willock, not selling him is a bad idea. And I think it's made worse by the fact that Joe Willock is a player who clearly has some qualities that are special, but he's also a tricky player to fit into your side because I don't think his passing is quite strong enough or defensive intensity is strong enough to play in the double pivot in central midfield. And so you need to find a way to get him in further up the pitch. And that's an area where I think we sort of struggle to fit him in. And what you said, where I think it would be devastating, is you don't take the 22 million pounds and he plays 300 minutes this season and scores 1 goal. And he's 15 million pounds next summer. And, you know, contract wise, you have less leverage because I think he'd be into the last year of his deal. So it's a case where selling can be painful, but look at when we sold Oxlade-Chamberlain. Look at when we sold Alex Iwobi, players that were clearly talented, that we liked, that came through as young players, you know, at Arsenal, but secured good fees, went on to careers that certainly we're not looking back and saying we wish we had kept them. And we can use that money to better our squad. So I would sell not because Willock isn't any good, but because Willock is probably at his peak value right now and not a clear fit for us. And as a last point on that, it's not like Willock went to Newcastle and was just sensational, period. Joe Willock went to Newcastle and scored 8 goals on 15 shots. He scored a goal every other shot he took. That's not sustainable. So, I mean, there is every chance that he ran really hot, that we're going to get a real nice fee because of that. And that maybe that's not, I mean, do I think Joe Willock is decent? Yes. Do I think Joe Willock is a goal every other shot? No, he's not. So be brave, take good fees, reinvest intelligently. The squad is bloated and we're not going to get better if we don't move some out to bring some in. I just think this fear we have of selling players means we wind up in stasis where every season we're looking at the team and going, El Neni is still here and Xhaka is still here and Kolasinac is still here and, you know, Willock and Nelson and Maitland-Niles. I mean, would we take the 15 million for Maitland-Niles we had last summer on offer? I think we would. So be decisive, use the money intelligently, and you'll always be okay.
I think it's a great point, and I totally 100% agree with you. And Lee, Elliot's got a good point in terms of trying to sell players. I've been harsh on Arteta and Edu, you know I have. I can't be harsh on Arteta and Edu for trying to sell or struggling to sell some of the absolute trash that the previous regime have left us with, or left him with, should I say. What's your thoughts on that? Are we going to have to mutually terminate some contracts here, or are we just going to have to try and take what we can for some of these players to try and get them out the door?
Well, hopefully learning by their mistakes, and with the Willock one, because, you know, they made the mistake, as Elliot said, with Maitland-Niles last year. There must have been a conversation. I've said this on earlier and shown. The conversation last season was sitting around the ballroom about players. Maitland-Niles, Mikel, how many games do you reckon? Is he going to be playing regularly for your team? How many games do you reckon? Well, I reckon he'll have 2 or 3 games. All right, we won't sell him for 20 million then. So as soon as he turned around and said, he's not going to be playing regularly, he may get 2 or 3 games, going to be a squad player, they should have sold him. Now we was all looking, he could be this player and all that. It's not not our call. It was that Mikel Arteta he played well into the cup final. The fee was probably 20 million, which was probably 5 million more than what we probably should have been. He should be sold, so we then could have gone on to somebody else. But no, we've pulled it now. And 6 months later, he's out on loan to West Brom. You know, come on, that sort of business is inexperience. So hopefully they've learned from that now. And they've thought, listen, Willock scored a few goals for Newcastle last season. He hasn't really done it for Arsenal. He's not going to be playing really for Arsenal. Let's take the money. Good deal. Thank you. At long last, learning. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, if he becomes a 50, 60, 70 million pound player in the next couple of years, good luck to him, because that means he's done the business at Newcastle, and that's how it goes. You can't be worried that he's going to be in the next Gnabry, or he's going to be this and he's going to be that. I don't care. You know what I mean? At this moment in time, surplus to requirements. Be ruthless. Maitland-Niles, be ruthless. Now, the greatest thing about us at the moment is that we can get rid of 4, 5, 6 players because we've got no Europe and all that. We don't have to have a big squad, so we can actually cut down on a squad and make a bit of money and bring. So, for instance, get rid 5, 6, 7 players, bring in 3. That's enough. That is enough for us for next season, so to move on. So I don't think it's, what Arsenal really need to do is to bring in quality rather than quantity, and that is not a bad thing for this season. Get in 3 quality players that are going to play in the first team, and there's going to be a couple of players that are in the first team now. They're going to be squad players, and that's what you want. What will happen then? God and behold, you improve.
Dan, can I just respond to one comment real quick that I saw? And it's from Darren above, like his father before him. Because he says, Elliot, you're making a huge assumption that any money we get for Willock will be reinvested into the squad. You're being wildly optimistic. I want to respond to this because I think this is an important point. That may be true. The problem is that's kind of saying don't do the smart thing because the people running the club will screw it up, right? Yeah. And I get it. But if we're forced to do bad things because we don't trust the people running the club to be smart, then we're screwed anyway, right? Let's say, just for example, selling Willock for 25 million is the smart move, but the club invests the money stupidly or not at all. Well, that doesn't mean that selling Willock was the wrong move. It means the people running the club need to be changed, right? If they're not smart and competent, and I'm not saying that's the case, I'm saying if. So that's an important word. But if they aren't, then we need to change them. The answer isn't stop doing smart things. The answer is make sure we have smart people running the club. So, and that's 100%. Not, by the way, I'm agreeing with Darren, right? I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm saying I get his point. We have a skepticism that the club would take that money and be smart with it. But if that's the case, that's a big problem and not a reason to not do the smart thing, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah, and 100%. I agree with that. And the thing with that is, and I agree with him because our track record, I understand why people think like this and all that.
Yeah, of course.
The reason, and a lot of people say, no, we ain't going to sign the players, but that's it. Ben White is done. That's the only thing that we're doing, is because of what's gone on in the past. And we've got to believe the people are running the club properly. And Elliot's spot on there. Come the end of the 31st of August, if that is the only business we can do, bye-bye, Edu. Bye-bye, Arteta. Get out of the club because you've not done your job properly when you had to in the transfer window. And then it's simple.
It is that simple for me. And, if even worsely, we do nothing other than Ben White's as a marquee signing, and we don't pick up a realistic. We will. But listen, I hope we do. I hope we do. But if it gets to that stage and we go into the first few games and things don't go well, I'll be amazed if this current regime lasts. But we've got an owner who doesn't care. So we could be in a situation where we get a whole season of being poor again. So I hope we do more business.
Dan,
Elliot,
can I give you just a really bad flashback just for a second? You know what I think is really ironic? We're looking at a window where there might need to be a trolley dash. We're looking at a window where we're going into the season, not sure if the squad's set yet. And we're going to Manchester at the end of the transfer window. Anybody remember what happened in Manchester at the end of a transfer window right before a trolley dash?
The judges
and do you know what date that was as well?
Yeah.
The actual same date.
Oh, are you kidding me? The exact same date?
Same date. It's the 28th, and I know that because it's my birthday. You know what I mean?
So well, that must have ruined that birthday.
8-2. Happy birthday, Lee Judges. 8-2.
Time is a flat circle, is all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
I'll tell you what, I was on the old I got myself smashed that night. I can tell, numb. But all jokes aside, that it could happen, and excuses were, if you remember rightly, from Arsene Wenger, it's very, very difficult to get players in to improve on when you've got second or third or fourth in the league. It's very, very hard to. We are 8th. It should be a lot easier to improve. So that excuse has gone out the window. Listen, I'm very, very confident that by the end of not so much by the end of next week, but by the end of the transfer window, we will be a little bit more excited than what we are at this moment in time.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I do, and I think it's because we have to. But Elliot, I'll come to you on this because we all know what we need, right? We all know that we need a backup goalkeeper. We all know we need a right back. We all know that we needed a centre half that was an upgrade on Holding, which we now believe we've got. We know that we needed an upgrade on Granit Xhaka. Whether that's Lukonga or not is yet to see. If we get anybody else, also the number 10 position, Smith Rowe needs help. We need a centre forward that knows where the goal is because Aubameyang, Laka, and Pepe have dried up with their goals as a front three. But realistically, as a priority for the rest of the window, where do you see us strengthening realistically?
Well, do you mean by virtue of the rumors I'm reading or in terms of what I regard as a priority?
Yeah, what you regard as a priority, because rumors are rumors and they'll go on forever, mate.
Yeah. So the problem is I would have regarded central midfield as a priority. I think if you put a Rolls-Royce footballer next to Thomas Partey, that can make a big impact in how we progress the ball into the final third, access central spaces so not everything's going up the wings, and maybe bring Aubameyang back a little bit, so he's not chasing balls out to the touchline and so on and so forth. But with Xhaka being re-signed, I'm glad Lee is confident. It gives me some hope. I think our central midfield group is what it's going to be. And I don't regard it as sufficient, but I think it's what it's going to be. So then I would say the next area is probably that attacking midfield spot, that support for Smith Rowe. We need more goals and we need more players who can reliably provide it. But a sneaky area that's becoming a problem, and I think it does look like we're interested, whether it's Lautaro Martinez or Tammy Abraham, is striker. Because we got two guys in their 30s and Balogun in his teens who's never played first-team football. And then it's like maybe Martinelli, maybe Pepe, but we don't know if they can play center forward. So it's kind of crazy to think that right now our two strikers are over 30 and there's no one else in the club who's played striker at the senior level. So you need that bridge. You need that 23, 24-year-old guy up front. And can Aubameyang get 15 goals this season? I think he can. Can he get 20? I don't think so. I don't know what Lacazette has left in the tank. Maybe he can chip in with some. I don't think many of us want to see Lacazette center and striker and Aubameyang on the wing. So yeah, if you said to me, rank those three, I would probably say central midfield is the number one priority still, but won't get done because we signed Xhaka. Attacking midfield and striker are sort of 2A and 2B, however you want to rate it. The one thing that's really weird, I'll finish with this, is we have a lot of right backs, but we don't have a right back. You know what they say? Like if you have three right backs, you don't have one. We have three right backs, but we don't have one right back. And in a modern era where fullbacks seem to be so important, look at how transformative Tierney is for us as a team. What if we had that level of quality on the right-hand side? What would that do for Pepe? What would that do for Saka? What would that do for Smith Rowe to have that threat on either side? So, I think Lee made a good point. The great thing about this squad is it's actually really easy to make it better. You could buy a right back, a center midfielder, an attacking 8, or a striker, and any of those things would be a big improvement. So let's do one of them at least.
Yeah, I think you're right. And Lee, I'll come to you on this one because the way I see it is we need creativity. And Smith Rowe, as much as I love him, we can't all be on his shoulders. So I think that we do need to look in that central midfield position first, and then we need to try and help Smith Rowe out with a creative midfielder. But the other position, I'm totally with Elliot. The other two positions I'm really worried about are right back and striker. The reason I'm worried about the right back is we've got three, as Elliot said, that I don't actually think are any good, if I'm honest with you, but potentially we've got Chambers as an okay player, but the other two have got mistakes in them, in my opinion. And what I don't want to do is buy Ben White and then have the same problem that Rob Holding had last season, which was the right back is always going to be clueless, Rob Holding. So as much as I still don't think Rob Holding's good enough, he was put in so much trouble because of the right back not being great. So it's going to be interesting to see what way that goes. Will the right back be better because Ben White's better than Holding? Or will Ben White look not so good and a bad signing because the right back we still haven't signed? What's your opinions on this, Lee?
I've said it all before. I think it is important, the right back. But if I've got a choice, I'm going for the midfield players first and foremost, because I think Chambers done an okay job. He done an okay job the other day as well. He's not a bad option to get us through until we get there. I know what he's saying. If we get a right back in, say if we got a 25 million right back, $1 million right back, and he bombs down there, saying exactly the sort of standard of Tierney, we are definitely going to be pushing on and everything like that. It's going to be really good. But ultimately, you're still going to need midfield players to open up things, because that's what you do. I know people go on about Liverpool, but their front three is completely different to our front three. We just spoke about that. Goal scorers, they've got goal scorers, goals in their midfield, in their front three. We've not at this moment in time. I watched the game last week. I know it's only a friendly, so I'm not going to go into it. Arsenal are leaving themselves far too open at the back because they're trying to overload areas and all that, because they've not got that player that can just pick a pocket in that midfield line. And that's what they need. So I think if you've got someone like let's say if we do sign Madison, you get him into that area, the fallback wouldn't be as essential because you're going through the lines through midfield. That's my opinion. If you're going to go on and challenge for the title or challenge for things like that, then you're going to need a right back. But for me, this season is about getting into the Champions League top four and then going for it. 2 stages, and that's how I feel. And I feel that Arsenal can't fail. We talk about it. So there's not a lot of midweek games this time, so we can work on things and try and make players a little bit better. The likes of Smith Rowe won't be used as much as what he would be if it was like two games, so it isn't too bad. But ultimately, we need someone there. The other side of it is, and I still say this now, Man City have signed Grealish. No one's worrying about, where's he going to fit in? We've got too many players playing wide and too many. What, they don't care, because it's all about winning and all that. We worry about things too much. What are we going to do with so and so? What are we going to do with that? Don't care. If you ain't good enough, you ain't playing. It's as simple as that. We've got to get that mentality right. And I think we've got the mentality at Arsenal, and Arsenal have done really, really well in this. They've dampened our expectations for years and years and years. So all of a sudden now, we accept that we're not going to go and get players. We accept this mediocrity because they've done it very, very well. And, that is the thing now. So you're asking the club and the players to change their mentality. We've got to be that. And I'm not saying that we should be toxic, but we should be demanding a little bit more than what we're getting at the moment. What I want to see is that the midfield players go. I do think that is a big, big key. I really do. In that midfield area, it needs improving. Someone said in the chat earlier on, which is fantastic, 3rd best defence last season, right? And we've improved our side of play. We have the worst midfield and the worst attacking options, and we feel like we're not really looking to improve on that. But we have got the basis now of a very, very good back four defensively, because 3rd is not bad. So the platform is there. The foundations are being built from the back, which I agree with. But now let's get those midfield players in, and this is the opportunity to do it.
I think it's absolutely spot on what you're saying there. And we're going to come on to some predictions very soon. It's going to be hard to do this, guys, by the way, because obviously the window's still open. We don't know what's happening. We have to try and be realistic about it. But before we do that, there's over 200 of you watching live. Please smash the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't. If you would like to donate to the channel, then you can do that via a super chat. And there's always somebody you can rely on, lead judges. If you cannot rely on anybody else, it's your dear mother. Mum, thanks so much for your kind donation to the channel. Now that Man City have Grealish, is there any other team who can challenge for the title? Wow. To be fair, Lee, he's a player we all wanted, to be honest with you.
I like to ask that for a Big Mac. Thank you, Donna. I'm getting hungry. Listen, they're going to win the league. They're going to win the league, because I do think that they're going to get Harry Kane as well, whether it be in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. There's conversations going on around that there. Listen, you're going to be finding it very, very hard to compete with them. Ultimately, I will say this: you can only play 11 players. They can't play 12 of them. Can I? 13. They can only play 11. They may have the best 11, so someone's going to have to tactically get them out of that sort of stuff. But I can't see past Man City.
No,
I'll be honest.
No,
I'll tell you what, Chelsea might be able to. If they buy Lukaku, they've got a chance. But I can't see.
I have to agree with you 100%. I think Chelsea have got a chance, and we'll see what happens with Liverpool. Another kind donation before we do more than this from the Arsenal Lounge. Lev, thanks very much for your kind donation, mate. Always great to hear the governor's views. Spot on, Lee. Great content. Keep it up. Thanks a lot for that, mate. Much appreciated. Guys, I asked you some questions before we come on, and I give you some time to actually think about these answers. But we wanted to look at the kind of season predictions as far as Arsenal are concerned. And we're going to do that for the next sort of 25 minutes or so and discuss it as a free, because there's some really interesting questions, I think, in this one, because we haven't seen much change in pre-season. So we kind of know what we're expecting for the first few games up until the window changes. Very hard to predict this because it's early on. We still haven't, but we don't believe, finished our transfer business. So I want to go for, if we believe that some of the rumours in certain positions are true, then we know that we're going to have a squad that looks a little bit different, albeit maybe not as much as we'd like to or hoped, but it will be a little bit different. But the questions I've looked at all about Arsenal and their season. So I want to come into these now. I'm going to start with you, Elliot, because I kind of put these together, and I know you do something similar on Arsenal Vision, and every year you kind of go back to it and see what you've kind of all put and discuss it. So we're going to do that similarly today. Who do you think will be Arsenal's player of the season this upcoming season, mate?
That's tricky. I mean, it's not that I don't think anybody's good. It's, do we have someone that's ready to step up and really take that mantle? I guess if I wanted to be optimistic, I think Nicola Pepe is in with a shout there. I think he finished last season really strong. He's looked pretty good this preseason, and he is the one player we have. There's really like two players, him and Tierney, who are entering their prime ages right now, right? So Tierney and Pepe are really the two players in the first 11 that are going into that period of their career where you expect them to now start to really peak. And I think if Arteta has the confidence in Pepe, which he clearly didn't at the start of last season, but he did by the end of last season, and he sticks with him out on the right there, I think he can add the goals that we've been missing. I think he can be an end product machine if he's not all the way out on the touchline like he was at times last season. So for me, both in terms of his age, his talent, the confidence the manager seems to have in him, I could see Nicola Pepe. If we have a good season, I think in large part it would have to be because Nicola Pepe steps up and really becomes the star that we hoped he would be when we bought him.
I'm going to 100% agree with Elliot. I've gone for
never
Pepe.
a good idea.
No, I shouldn't be now. Now you've said it, I should have changed my mind, shouldn't I? But I've gone for it.
Yep.
No, I'm going to go for Pepe because I think he ended so well this season, and I'm actually a real big fan of this guy. The reason I will go even more with Pepe is if we actually do get a right back, because if we've got Ben White and a right back behind him, I think if he does play on that right-hand side, I think he'll be exceptional. I actually prefer Pepe on the left because I think that although Saka is probably our best player on the left-hand side there, I think Saka gives us more balance on the right-hand side at the moment due to the fact that we haven't quite got things right in other positions. And Pepe on that left-hand side, the way that he was ending the season, was looking good on the right or left. So I'm going to go in for Nicola Pepe as player of the season. And people may laugh at that and think that's crazy and go, of course it's Saka. Of course, it's got potential to be, Smith Rowe. But I think Pepe ended so well, and actually was probably one of our players of the season last season. So I'm going to go for Nicola Pepe and stick my neck on the line. Lee Judges, what do you make of that?
He's not at the club yet.
That's never a good sign.
Wow. Okay. Anyone in mind, or just you think you're just going to leave it there?
I'll keep my powder dry, but I think the player's going to come in, right? And this is, I might be overgoing the top. He's going to do what Bruno Fernandes done at Man United. I think it's so important, that role. And whoever it is, he will be our player of the year.
Okay. I like that. I like that answer. And do you know what? I hope that me and Elliot are wrong and you're right, because that means we've got one hell of a talent on our hands if we get somebody through the door. So let's hope that me and Elliot are right. But listen, I'll
stop and just say, Lee, I think that's an interesting perspective. I just don't see how Aaron Ramsdale is going to add that to the team. But that's
I love that. Let's move on to
could be Aaron Ramsey, though. Could be Aaron Ramsey.
Wow.
Oh man! And look in the comments. Wait, who is it? Assad Mohammed was he? I think he beat me to it by a minute, by 1 minute.
Oh, silly goody. Ramsdale.
So much Messi incoming, like, I mean, so I don't think so. Like,
I don't think it's going to be
Messi.
Messi.
Messi is not the one I was thinking of.
No, absolutely. From goalkeepers to goal scorers, let's go to top scorer, because obviously it's normally an easy question, isn't it? Last few seasons, Aubameyang. But of late, this has been a real tough one for me. So I'm going to say the same person. The reason I think Pepe is going to be the player of the season is because I think he's going to be our top goal scorer. So I'm going to go for Pepe. Lee Judges, let's come to you next.
I'm with you on that. I've got Pepe. I think he's the best
as
finisher
well.
that we've got at the club. Yeah, I do. I think that I say it all along. I think he should be moved into a more central area for us. I really do, because he is the best finisher at the club. When he goes through 1-on-1, I'm more confident in him scoring than anybody else in the team, and that includes Aubameyang.
Wow.
Are we going to be? How long will we be without him if the AFCON goes forward? Do we have?
That's a great question. That was what I was going to come on. It's a few weeks, depending on how long they get through the competition.
Yeah, then we get that 3 weeks, isn't it? I didn't think of that, but Elliot's done his own work, isn't he?
Well, is Oba going to go? I don't think so. I'm not sure because
I don't know if Gabon are there or what's happening there.
Well, what I'll pick Aubameyang, and it's not because I think Aubameyang will have his 20-goal season. I think he'll have more of a 15-goal season. I think Pepe will have that like 12 or 13-goal type season, but throw in another 6-7 assists, just being generally dangerous and really effective. And then I think, unfortunately, we'll miss him a lot when he goes away. But I still think just in terms of pure goal scoring, Aubameyang is good enough to hit that 15, 16-goal mark. So I'll stick with Oba, unless if Pepe becomes our penalty taker, knowing all the penalties Arsenal are going to get this season, well, that could change it.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Okay, let's go to most improved player, because this one's a difficult one for me, because when people say this, they always think of a young player that's coming through the youth ranks. That's not necessarily how I've judged this. So most improved player for me, I've gone for Thomas Partey.
Smart.
And although I think he had a great season last season, I don't think that. Although I don't think he had a great season last season, I think he will have this season. I saw him against Chelsea, and although it's pre-season and he only had a few minutes, he was by far head and shoulders our best player until he got injured. And I've looked at him in pre-season and think he looks really sharp. And I think that if we make sure that we do build this side around him and make things easier for him, I think we've got one hell of a player on our hands. So I've gone for Thomas Partey. Elliot, what's your thoughts?
The only thing I'll say with Partey is the club has to absolutely positively not bring him back until he's 100% fit, because a high ankle sprain is the kind of thing that can just linger and linger if you don't let it get right. So I hope they will give him the time to get right. I'm torn between Martinelli and Smith Rowe, because I think both are immensely talented, but I think Smith Rowe will have more opportunity than Martinelli. So I'm going to go for Smith Rowe. I think you talk about looking great in preseason. He looks like he's added a little bit of muscle. He looks like he's really filling out. And I think there's a lot more end product in him than we've seen so far. He was very good last season, but moved to the left, moved to the center, played that weird false nine against Villarreal, was out a bit injured. As long as he stays fit, yeah, sorry to bring that up. As long as he stays fit, I mean, I think that's a guy who can be a 10-goal, 6-assist type guy. I really think it's in him. Maybe not quite yet this season, but I think it's there. So for me, we've given him the 10. He looks physically stronger, and he's on it this preseason. I think he's going to have a big season.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. I just think that if we were going to pick somebody younger, I would have gone for Smith Rowe. He obviously only had a few months last season from Christmas to the end of May, and he was chopped and changed around so much. Yeah. If he actually does play in that number 10, and if we don't get a Maddison, and he actually does play, I think we're going to see a hell of a talent there. I really do. Lee Judges, what's your thoughts on most improved player for this season coming up?
Thomas Partey. I thought he was. I watched him until he got injured last week. He was breathtaking. I know it's only a friendly, but he made Chelsea's midfield look average. He was absolutely brilliant, and I think if he picks up that sort of form, he will have a very good season. So I do agree with the Smith Rowe one, but I do think that Thomas Partey, to what he was last season, I think there's going to be a massive improvement.
Yeah, I really do. And I'm hoping he is as well, because isn't it just annoying that we get someone like that and then they go and get injured for 4 to 6 weeks? You know, it's just so Arsenal, isn't it? It really is so Arsenal. So let's see what happens.
The funny thing with Partey is, if he's only as good as he was last season, but just plays all the time, that would be fine. You know, I don't think he was bad last season. It's just that he was in and out of the team. You know, that was the biggest problem. Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. And I think that as long as he does stay fit, which is unbelievable that he went to Atletico Madrid, never got injured, comes to us and he can't get in the run of games, more than 5 or 6 games. It's just unbelievable. Talking of lack of creativity, the next one is most assists at the Arsenal side. I'll let you start with this one, Elliot.
That's really tricky, because I think this is one where it could be in Lee's wheelhouse, where it may be that player to be named later if an Odegaard or a Maddison come in. I think Smith Rowe is a good shout. But I'll say I'll say Bukayo Saka. I want to have an answer for Bukayo Saka, and I don't have one where he fits quite perfectly. I think he's just off being our most improved, just off being our player of the season. But I could see Bukayo Saka being a guy. I don't think he's ever going to necessarily be a prolific goal scorer, but I think he can be a prolific creative player from wide. So I could see him and Pepe and Smith Rowe having a nice little battle for most assists, but I'll go with Saka.
Before I come to you, Lee, I have my say on this because I am going to 100% agree with Elliot. I'm going to go
All
for
right.
Saka. Yeah, this is never good, is it, when me and you agreeing, and it's going to go wrong. But there we go. I mean, listen, Bukayo Saka is a player. I'm with you. I don't think the end product's quite there yet with Bukayo Saka. I think there's been some opportunities where I think could have done better there, Bukayo. But you know what? You've created so much and you've been our rising star. I'll forgive you. And I think that's going to continue into next season. I think that he does need to improve his end product. And I think he would probably even say that. And Arteta's come out and said that both him and Smith Rowe need to improve their end product, and let's see if they will this season. I think there's a few for this one. This one I struggled with, if I'm honest, because obviously Kieran Tierney, we hope to think that he won't be as injured, fingers crossed, touch wood, and he's an option that I did look at. Smith Rowe, likewise. Pepe, I think although he will score a lot of goals, I actually think he'll create as well. So there's a few options there, but I will go for Bukayo Saka. Lee, let's head to you.
We'll do a full house on that because I'll still say it'll be the one coming in. You know, if whoever that will be, but if not, I think Saka. I think he'll be the one with the assists. I think he was up there on the assists last season as well, and I just think he will get better. I think everybody just think with Saka, you just think, oh yeah, he's going to be this, he's going to be that. So you sort of tend to just miss him out of things because the expectation is so high. But for me, I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, I think everybody's pretty excited.
Still going to be that one, but Saka if not.
The player who's right on the player who's right on the brink of all this, who just needs an injury or an opening or an opportunity to explode, I think is Martinelli. And I think it'll be really interesting to see. I think one of the challenges Arteta has, he's got to find 1,500 minutes for Martinelli this season with no Europe, because that's a player who, anybody who's into data at all, like his underlying metrics when he plays are out of through the roof. He's just an end product machine. We've seen him against Chelsea with that, already legendary goal. But I think Arteta has to find out what he's got in that player. And if someone's out for a little bit and Martinelli gets a run in the side, either because Arteta trusts him or, just through serendipity, I think he has the potential to be someone who changes the trajectory of our season.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying. Saka could actually play the number 10 role if we don't buy no one. And that would release Martinelli to the left-hand side. That's what I think might happen. But I still think I'm going to believe that we want there. But I think you're right. Martinelli's got to he'll have a big season.
You know what would be interestingly is if he goes with a 4-3-3 and he wants to play with two attacking eights instead of the double pivot, he could put, someone like Pepe at a party at the base of midfield, play Saka and Smith Rowe as eights. Mm-hmm. And then he can have Nicola Pepe and Martinelli wide. So that 4-3-3, if he wants to go attacking against smaller teams and use Saka and Smith Rowe as the eights, he's got room to fit all of those options in there. And I know this all starts to sound a little bit like Football Manager, FIFA 21 type stuff, but it is exciting thinking about the ways he can try to find spaces for all those guys, because they're all very exciting.
I love that. I love that idea of a 4-3-3, because 4-2-3-1, as much as it does give us the number 10, I still think number 10s are just dead in football. So for me, 4-3-3 is, I think, what Arteta does want in the long term, but I just don't think he's had the players available. So maybe you're right, Elliot. He could look at to doing something like that, but it's yet to remain to be seen. The next question is, who will be the young breakthrough player? Now, this is always a difficult one, because I say young breakthrough. Does that mean someone who's just on the brink of getting games, or is that someone who's just going to come from absolutely nowhere and you think, never even heard of this guy, he's absolutely outstanding? So the reason I've gone for this guy is because at the moment we have very short sort of people in that position. Excuse me. And I'm looking at somebody from the academy that's coming up. So if you guys have changed, absolutely fine, and you want to go for someone who's on the brink currently in the squad, that's absolutely fine. But I've gone for Miguel Aziz. I've seen this guy in the preseason, and I just think I know talent sometimes when I see it, and I sometimes get it wrong. But there's so much I like about this kid. I started to watch some of his YouTube clips because obviously he's come on for a few games. And I appreciate that that's sometimes dangerous, because when I viewed Mustafi, he looked like Cannavaro. But when I look at Miguel Aziz, I see somebody there who is strong, who is looking like he's not skipped leg day for the last 6 weeks. I tell you that. And someone who I think could actually get into playing some minutes this season and looking good. So I've gone for Miguel Aziz. Elliot, let's come to you.
The hard part with an Aziz or a Balogun shout is just that both of them might be better served going on loan where they can get 30 games of senior football instead of playing in the U23s and getting 300 minutes at Arsenal. That remains to be seen. Aziz, maybe he's still at that level where U23 football is okay for him. But like, you're right. It's rare that you see a player look like a kid in May and a man in September, amazing, right? In August. Amazing. Yeah, I mean, he's just transformed. I think I'll go for Lokonga. I don't know if he's young enough to count, but I think
I was going to go for him. Yeah.
We looked at him as like one for the future heir apparent to Thomas Partey, but the way he's looked, how silky and smooth his technique is, he was captain of Anderlecht, so he's not some young kid who's going to be in over his head. He obviously has a lot of character, a lot of self-belief, and I think he has a technical level that's higher than what we've seen in midfield from a lot of the options. If we are in a situation where someone like Mohamed El-Neni's in line to play minutes, like he might even be against Brentford, I'd much rather give him to Lokonga because we know where El-Neni can take us. Nowhere, really. There's no ceiling there. We don't know where Lokonga can take us, but I think his skill set gives us optionality, gives us more capability to go somewhere special. So depending on injuries, depending on, him proving himself, I could see Lokonga getting 15, 17 starts in the Premier League, well ahead of schedule and looking really, really impressive.
And it's a very, very wise choice. It was what I was going to go for. The reason I didn't was because obviously he's a signing, and I was kind of thinking more about coming through the youngsters, the youth academy.
No, that makes sense.
I understand totally where you're coming from there. And I was really impressed with his forward passing. A few people in the chat are talking about that. That's just something we're not used to at Arsenal. So when someone passes it, we're like, wow, he's unbelievable. Get him in the team. And it's crazy. So Lee Judges, let's come to you on this one.
I've gone for Balogun. I feel that there's going to be opportunities if with the lack of goals. And you know what? I look at him and I just think he's got all the attributes to be a real top striker. He's big, strong, pacey, someone that can get on the end of things for us as well. So I've gone for him just purely because I think that he will get opportunities in the League Cup and things like that. And I think that he'll take him. I really do. I really like what I've seen of him. I really like him. I like him.
That's if Balogun, Mikel Arteta plays Balogun ahead of Eddie Nketiah, because that just doesn't seem to be happening. So let's hope that does happen moving forward. I wouldn't surprise me, Lee, if Balogun actually goes on loan, if we do get a Martinez signing in, and I wouldn't 100% be against that as long as we're looking at the situation where we're having the right kind of players coming in there. So, Elliot, I'm gonna let you come in, man.
Sorry. The only thing with Balogun that I would say is, like, we don't know, right? Like, this is what's so hard with, like, Aziz and Balogun. They look really talented. They're really hyped up. They played well for the U23s. We haven't gotten a look at them at senior level football yet, right? And so I think that's always so tricky to project, because I remember thinking like J. Emmanuel Thomas was going to come in and be a storming player because he was just too much of a man for U23 football. But it turns out he didn't have what it took at the higher level. And we can, discuss at another time why that might have been. So I think if there had been Europa League, I'd be inclined to say Balogun's going to get 1,000 minutes at Arsenal this season. There isn't. I think it's going to be hard for him to cross that 300, 400-minute threshold. And at this age, at this level of his development, is that good enough? Or do we want him to do, what like Smith Rowe did when he went to Huddersfield, right? Which is go get senior football at a good level, prove himself, and come back feeling ready to contribute to the first team. I would love for Balogun to be great for Arsenal right now. But the more important thing is that Balogun is ready next season when Aubameyang's 33 and Lacazette is, hopefully moved on, and we need him. So I'd do whatever it takes to get Balogun a 2,000-minute, 3,000-minute season of senior football. So for me, the only reason he's not in the conversation here is I really, really hope the club considers loaning him.
Yeah, I think it is a good point. And I think that if we are going to look at sort of him for cup games and FA Cup games, for him to then try and get into the side, I don't think it's a bad thing. But if he's not going to be in the kind of sights of Mikel Arteta, then I would rather see him go online. Mark, I've got to bring Mark in here. You can't win anything with kids, was once said many years ago. Let's go for it. And in a couple of seasons, we could be challenging for the title once they have had the minutes on the pitch. And although that some people might say that's unrealistic, I would much prefer seeing Balogun, Martinelli, Smith Rowe, Saka. They're exciting players. I don't want to see Willian coming on. He's shown me what he can do. I don't want to see El-Neni coming on. Lokonga I'd much prefer to see. I'd rather see Miguel Aziz. And is it Charlie Patino, the guy they're talking about at the moment, being like the next best thing?
Huge. They say he's the best. The Patino hype, and I haven't watched him a lot, but the hype is They've said he's the best prospect they've seen come through the academy in the last decade.
And they're talking about him playing in a Granit Xhaka position. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There we go.
Which would be handy.
It would be 100%. It would be. So before we go into that, let's talk on to the next one. So I've gone for this is a strange one. I've gone for the most cards to be received by a player. Now, I know that sometimes that sounds a bit of a strange stat, but I think it's important because we do always look at the same players there. Do you think there's anybody that we're going to see that comes in and just absolutely becomes a Roy Keane, Patrick Vieira in the middle, or do you think it's going to be like I do, Granit Xhaka? Does anyone think any raises on Granit Xhaka? Lee Judges, just come to you.
No, I think it'd be like you always look at midfield players or defenders because they're going to put their make the tackles and things like that. So, and if I'll be honest, if I was coaching, I'd expect my midfield players to get booked. I expect them to get booked and defenders to get booked because hopefully more so midfield players because defenders getting booked is in desperation. So for me, if Granit Xhaka becomes the most carded player, that's fine by me. And I think if you have a look at most successful sides, it would be a midfield player that would be getting booked the most. So for me, Granit Xhaka.
Fair play.
It's hard to get away from that. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away from it.
Before I come to you, I've got to ask you this because Manus is saying, what's on Elliot's head? So I'll let you take that one. I'll let you take that one before you go on.
I don't know. Yeah, so I'm going to go for Party. Shaq is the obvious answer. I'm going to go for Party. So one thing that we do, like on the Patreon side on our pod, is we do these scouting videos where we watch Y Scout video of the player that's coming in, and Clive analyzes him, and then I add inane commentary that adds nothing to the content. But the interesting thing with Party that we saw a lot at Atletico is, that's clever, is that he does he's got those long telescoping legs and he likes to try to get them in front of the player before the ball arrives or wrap them around the player. He tackles from weird angles. And I think you saw it with Vieira too a little bit, right? So when you get those really long legs, he tries to use those legs to get the ball away from weird angles. And he gets it right a decent amount, but he also gets it wrong enough. And we saw a little of that last season too, just tackling from behind, trying to reach that leg around and trying to get it into spaces where the ball was just gone before he was there. So if he plays a lot, which we hope he will, I could see that tackling style leading to him getting yellow cards when it doesn't come off. And I'm not talking about, where he's sent off a lot or anything like that. Just I could see him pushing Xhaka for that yellow card thing. Xhaka gets yellows because he's not in the right position. He can't move his legs. He doesn't have the mobility, so he grabs, right? He reaches with his arms, or he has to go in to recover the position. He has to go to ground. I don't think Party has that problem. I just think he tries to use those long legs to his benefit. And that, when that goes wrong, it's almost always a card. So I could see Party being the guy.
Yeah. And do you know what? I mean, I hope that it kind of is in that situation, in that scenario, because I don't mind somebody going in like that. I don't mind that, and sometimes you need to build up yellow cards. I'll come to you on this one, Lee. You sometimes need to build it up because the amount of tackles Patrick Vieira did, and he got away with it because he was Patrick Vieira. That's what I want to see Thomas Partey doing. I want to see do you know what? Oh, it's Thomas Partey. The ref kind of, I know it's different nowadays and refs are more than happy to give you the cards, but there are still occasions where I see, wow, how has Basuma got away with 5 so far? How has, Eric Lamela got away with 400 million in one game? Sometimes you get to that stage, don't you? And you just think, wow, maybe Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka can be a bit like that. I don't know. Lee, what's your take on this?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think that it's a lot easier to get a yellow card now than what it was back in 5 years ago, and it was in the 70s and 80s, 9 impossible if you'd done really well to get yellow cards, So I think that sometimes you have to be a little bit clever with it all and all that. Ultimately, the more yellow cards you're getting, you're probably not even on the ball so much. So you'd be defending a lot. So that's why I'm saying that I don't want defenders getting it, because we should be getting more. We should be playing more attacking, and so I don't want to see our defenders making tackles. That's why I'm saying that. So in the midfield, you get about, and if you're a very, very good team, you don't get so many bookings. But ultimately, look, listen, I'm not saying I'll be happy with either one, but I'll be very surprised if it's not either one of them two.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. Coming to the end now of the last few before we do wrap up. Who do you think will make the most errors leading to goals this season? It's something that just seems to keep happening and happening and happening and has been for the last few seasons. But last season in particular, at the back, it was really dodgy in parts. Now, the reason, here's my logic with my answer for this one. I don't know who our right back is going to be. I imagine at the moment it's Callum Chambers. He's an injury-prone player. So therefore, Bellerin possibly going out the door, it looks to me as if Cedric's going to play a lot more than we think. So that's the reason I've gone for him. I saw the game against Hibs, and I mean, although Okonkwo didn't do himself any justice, it was his debut. Cedric's back passing was absolutely shocking. And we've seen a player of now 30 years old almost that is making the same mistakes week in, week out. He's done it against Aston Villa. He's done it in North London Derby games, and he did it in the pre-season there. So I've gone for Cedric in the hope that he won't play, but I just think he probably will if we're not going to look at a right back as a priority, which I'm not so sure that we will do now. So, Lee Judges, let's start with you, man. Who have you gone for?
I'm hoping it's Leno.
That's a good shout. Yep.
A goalkeeper, makes a mistake, one or two for the season, and that probably is enough. I don't want to see defenders making mistakes for goals. They shouldn't make mistakes for goals, but ultimately, I don't expect to be too many now. Ben White's going to improve that. I think that Gabriel's solid defender, Tierney's solid. So I'm going to go Leno.
Elliot, are you leaning towards that as well?
No, I'm going to go for Xhaka. I mean, I just think we have the data. We know it's usually him. I think the funny thing is, I think Xhaka had his best season for Arsenal last season. I think it was actually really, really good. And that's great. I actually don't think Xhaka's been that good traditionally for us. And I think if he goes back to being a little more like what he's been for us, then last season might actually seem like it was a blip. Even if he's good, the problem you have whenever your deepest midfielder is slow of foot and has a slow turn, right? A 3-touch turn, he's going to get the ball taken off him. He's going to get caught in possession. He's going to make mistakes because he doesn't have the time and space he needs. We saw it the other day was it against Chelsea actually, where there was that back pass and he gave it away, right? And I mean, again, it was a pass from Leno to him. Leno should never have give it to him there. He put him in it. But a more fleet of foot player there, I think, finds a way to get it out of his feet. We saw, was it against Burnley where he smacked it in off the Burnley player? I mean, I just think if we keep using Xhaka in that way with his turning radius and his sort of slow-footedness, errors are going to be a part of it. So I'm not saying he's going to have a terrible season, but I do think he will lead us in errors leading to goals. And he's done that for so many seasons. I think it's a good, safe bet.
Some people in the chat are putting Arteta.
Most errors leading to goal.
Mate, let's hope you're wrong. I really do. I mean, listen,
deeply cynical.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Lee, did I come to you? Did you say yours?
Yep. He said Leno.
You said yours. Yeah. Let's move on then, because we're going to be looking at the last two, which are probably the most important two, really. And they're both, where are Arsenal going to finish? And I appreciate at the moment that's very difficult. So we're going to go, if nothing else happens, where are Arsenal going to finish? And if you believe that we're going to get some players in, where do you think they will? Lee Judges, let's come to you.
At this moment in time, I think Arsenal will be best they can get is 7th. And if I believe they get the signings they should do, and I hope that they do, I think we could be 4th or 5th. That's how big those two key ones are.
Very optimistic if we get the signings right. Elliot, I'll let you have a go at this one. What's the scoop?
I think we'll finish 5th. I think 61-ish points is around what I think we can achieve. I think we can do it without any additional signings because I just think overall there's enough talent in the side. And if we look at how we finished last season, I think that's more representative of where we were. I think that ridiculous start to the season, which is inexcusable and could have been sack-worthy. If you eliminate that, you have a team that on the whole probably performed right to around what it should be. So I think 5th is safe. I think the one thing fans have to look at, though, is we got to be honest with ourselves. Right now, Chelsea, City, United, Liverpool, they are in a different tier. All right? We might finish 5th, but be miles off 4th. And I realize we weren't even miles off 4th last season, but Chelsea only had a half season under Tuchel. They're strengthening again. Liverpool had a dominant attack last season, but had literally no defender. I think one of us had to play defense for Liverpool last season at some point. United have strengthened again with Jadon Sancho. City are just City. They feel like, I think our goal to get in the top 4 should be in 2 or 3 seasons from now. This season, I don't see how we can close that gap. Whatever business we do, I think that gap is too big. So I would say get to 5th, get back into Europe, consolidate there, strengthen from there, look for Liverpool's cycle to start to end, because they're the one that I think you could catch if, Sadio Mane and Firmino and Salah, they start to age out, and Henderson and Gini Wijnaldum's gone. Can you catch Liverpool not strengthening well enough at the end of their cycle? Because I think that's the one that will become vulnerable of that group. But for this season, let's get to 5th. Let's prove we are the best of that next tier, and then worry about jumping into that tier a season or two from now.
I think you're talking sense there, Elliot, if I'm honest, because I really can't see Man City, Chelsea, or Liverpool coming below Arsenal. I just can't see it. I think Manchester United, now that they've strengthened with Rafael Varane and Sancho, and it looks to be Sal from Atletico Madrid, and potentially a striker as well. I mean, I'd be amazed if they get that done. But that's going to be very scary for 4th place. I think top 4 is going to be too unrealistic, even if we get the players in. I think currently we're looking at around about 6th or 7th. I think you're right. If we do get the players that we're hoping to get, I think we're fighting for the next of the best, and I think 5th would be the best we can hope for. I'd like to say that Liverpool, Manchester United will have a terrible season and that we can have a chance of sneaking into that top 4, but I just don't realistically see it. And I think that we need another couple of seasons potentially with these young players so that they can be ready to fight for the Champions League, as opposed to trying to get themselves back into Europe. So I'm going to go for 5th at best. At the moment, we're around about 6th or 7th. I think the one team that could surprise this season at Everton, because I think that their manager is superb. I'm a massive fan of Rafa Benitez. I think that he's very underrated. I think he's been achieved everything everywhere he's gone. And I think that the squad there is actually quite talented. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. If Leicester do keep hold of Tielemans and Maddison, they've got a great chance of just missing out on the top 4 again and getting 4th or 5th. And then I think it will be between us and Everton in 5th or 6th. Place, 6th and 7th place after that. So that's my realistic kind of opinion. But I want to move on to Mikel Arteta to finish up here, because how long do we think this guy's going to last? I'm going to go last. I'm going to come to you first, Elliot.
So this is tricky, because the question isn't how long would I give him? It's how long will he last? And I think he will last this entire season no matter what happens, period. Because even if I don't think he winds up deserving that, I don't have any confidence that the club will have the decisiveness or a plan in place as a contingency if it's not going well. The one reason I could see that changing is this. When we hit that rock bottom just before Boxing Day, I couldn't see it turning around. But you didn't have fans in the ground. I wonder if Arteta would have survived that if there were chants of you don't know what you're doing, if there were boos, if there were banners, if there were planes flying over the ground, right? I mean, we know how fans can get, and it's been a tough few years for Arsenal fans, and let's be honest, it's been a tough few years for the world. So there's going to be a lot of pent-up frustration. I think the thing that makes it even harder is, even if we beat Brentford, City and Chelsea are probably losses through no fault of our own. So, you're 3 games in on 3 points, already looking up a little bit, and then you're into an international break and there's work to be done. So I rate Arteta as a coach. Do I think he was quite ready for the Arsenal job? In retrospect, I'm not sure. I want to be really clear about something. Mikel Arteta has been given more power at Arsenal than makes sense. Mikel Arteta needed to walk into a job where there was a robust structure of authority and decision-making above him to support him and mentor him into a difficult new job. And instead, after winning an FA Cup 6 months into getting the job, he's named manager, his boss is sacked, Edu becomes his boss, Vinay, who has very little experience, becomes that guy's boss, and Arteta just hoovers up all that power, that vacuum of power. That is not Arteta's fault. That's the club's fault. They've let him down by not creating a strong infrastructure around him to really sit him in that coach's chair and say, you focus on this, we'll take care of the rest. And so if this job eats him up, I think the part that will eat him up is the excess power and authority and responsibility he's had to take on over and above being just the first team coach. So I like Arteta. I do. I think he's made a lot of mistakes and gotten a lot of things wrong. I think towards the end of last season, he started to get some things right. The less said about the Europa League, the better. I can see him coaching his way out of this and being good, but I struggle seeing that in the power vacuum that is Arsenal. So it is a very difficult job for anyone, let alone a new manager. I hope he succeeds, because if he succeeds, that means we do. What I really doubt is that there's any scenario where the club has a contingency for moving him on this season. So I think he will get this season. And the good news is, I think by the end of the season, we will have no doubt one way or the other what the right way forward is. I do think we will get a much clearer sense after this season of whether he's a man we can stick with. That's a long answer. I'm sorry.
Elliot, no, but it's a thorough answer, but actually it makes a lot of sense because I have no faith either that this board or these owners have any care where we come this season. Lee Judges, what's your thoughts on Mikel Arteta and how long do you think he could potentially last?
It lasts as long as the results are going well, because I believe that sincerely. I think that if things are not done at the end of the transfer window, he will be under the pump from then. Straight away that game afterwards. I'm with Elliot. I've already written off the first 3 games. I don't think that we'll win any of those 3 games.
Wow.
I think I might get a draw at Brentford, but I think the other 2 that we might draw against Chelsea at home if we're lucky. But ultimately, City away, we know what's coming. But listen, it don't matter if you've got like another 4 players in City away. Chances are you'd lose that game anyway. So not many teams are going. I wouldn't be surprised if City went unbeaten at home all season. So let's put that in perspective. But after that transfer window it comes, and the key is for his survival is how well he does, and the other key is that the fans are back. I'm telling you this now. There's no way the fans will put up with it at the Emirates of 1-0 defeats like they did last season and boring games and not put up with it. They will go and they will turn quickly. I'm telling you that for a fact. And if that was last season, Mikel Arteta, I can tell you this now, would not have been in a job come Christmas. It would have been too toxic and they would have had to have done something. So for me, the fans being back is a key to his success along with this transfer window. And if it's like it was last season when we're not being able to break down teams, losing 1-0, he will be gone. And I don't care whether we would say about the board and all that. They will have no choice. Like they had no choice with Emery, they will have to face the bullet, whether they've got a plan or not. The fans will not put up with it.
I think that's right, yeah.
Listen, I couldn't agree more. I'm going to give my answer. My answer in months is October. That's actually what I think as well. I don't think we're going to get past these fans. We saw how bad it was under Unai Emery. We saw what it was like with Arsene Wenger at the end of his career. And I think that now we're looking at what it will be like under Mikel Arteta with boring football, that we are losing 1-0 to Burnley at home. We're losing 1-0. Go on, buddy.
If you pay £90 for a ticket and you can't break down Burnley, Crystal Palace and all that, like those fans have got the right to say something. Do you know what I mean? That's not being toxic. They've got the right. Do you know what I mean?
100% we have.
Can I ask you a question then, Dan? Who's going to sack? Who's going to? Because like the one thing with Emery is, look, Raul was a grifter, but Raul had a big ego and a lot of power, and he sacked Emery, even though I don't think he wanted to. I think Edu, and again, I don't know this, I'm just guessing, but Edu feels almost like a figurehead in a way. I think Arteta has as much or more power than Edu at the club. So we know the owners aren't paying close attention. So I guess all I would ask you, Dan, is if you think it's going to happen in October, who's going to do it? Who's going to make that call and make it happen? Because that's where I really struggle to see infrastructurally at the club where that decision comes from.
I don't think that there will be, and I think it's a great question, Elliot, because I've said in one breath I think that he's going to go, but a few minutes ago I said the Cronkies don't care, but I actually think, do you know what I think will happen? Is I think that Josh Kroenke, because Silent Stan doesn't care, let's be honest. I think Josh Kroenke will look at the toxicity of what it was, the Everton game last time with the protest outside. He's now, we believe, putting his hand in his pocket for the James Maddison signings, the Ben White signings and stuff like that. If you want to believe that, will go down that road. I think what he will do is he'll have to listen to the fans and say, you're not happy. I have to do something about this because it's going to come to me. It's not going to come to Edu. It's not going to come to Vinay. It's going to come to the Cronkies out. Because Arteta and Kroenke out, everyone puts together. So I think Kroenke will have to react. And whether it's Stan or Josh or the pair of them, I think they'll have to. And I really hope I'm wrong, Elliot, because it will mean that we're doing well. But I just think that if we get to a stage of October, we're struggling to pick up points, mate. I think we're going to see Arteta out, and I think Cronkies will pull the plug. And I think Edu won't get involved in that. Edu, I think, just wants to have... Edu seems to me like a bit of I want an easy ride. I want to go over to Brazil, speak to my friends and see who can actually try and, improve this side. So that's my best way of answering it, mate. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
I don't think that's wrong. Where I agree with you and Lee completely is if the atmosphere at the Emirates becomes incredibly toxic, then change will come. I'm curious how low things will have to get. Let's also gosh, I can't believe I'm about to say this, guys, and please forgive me for saying it. It's not out of the question that we lose the chance to have fans at the ground again. I mean, I had to cancel an event that we had planned in Vegas for our fans because of COVID. So I think we're not out of the woods yet of that being taken away. And I'm sorry to upset anybody. I'm not saying that because I think it'll happen or hope it'll happen, but that's not out of the woods. But like, yes, if the atmosphere is toxic and the fans are chanting for him out every game, then yeah, I think you get change because ultimately, if someone at the club doesn't make the decision to change him, they're going to get their sack as well, which might be for the best. So yeah, I can see it happening. I think for me, just the way I want to be a fan, right? I want to take a beat. I want to give him the chance. I'm not super. I'll just be completely honest. Arteta hasn't done it for me. I was ready for him to go in December. He hasn't won me over. But I don't want to go into a new season thinking the manager's going to be sacked by October. I just don't want to be there. So even though everything inside me says that may be the case, you know what, Dan? This is where I'm going to give up my analytical hat and just put on my fan hat and say, like, I just want to believe he gets it right, because that would mean we're doing well. And I don't want to be sitting here a week before the season kicks off talking about the manager getting the sack in October. And by the way, that's not me blaming you. It's not even because I think you're necessarily wrong. Just as a supporter, I'm not ready to get there yet. I need to build up to that kind of momentum, and I'm just not there yet emotionally.
Elliot, I think it's a great way to end what has been a real up and down podcast, because we all want it to be this way. We all want it to. We want to do. Believe it or not, we're all Arsenal fans. I know we might talk negatively, but we all want us to win. And as much as I'm not a massive fan of the manager, do I want us to go unbeaten and win everything? Of course I do, because I'm an Arsenal fan. So I think that we have to end it that way and say, do you know what? We have to put the trust now in this guy. He said he's going to be backed. He said that he knows what he's doing. Him and Edu are working together. He said the Cronkies are going to give him the money. Let's see what happens. And 6 games in, if it's not going right, of course, I'll be banging that drum again to say, let's move things forward, because I cannot stand another season I had last season. That's for sure.
I'll come spit fire with you when it happens, Dan. That's fine. I'll be ready.
You know that, man. You know that. That leads me to say a huge thank you to everybody in the chat. 350 of you at one stage watching live. Absolutely superb numbers. Thank you so much for coming back and interacting with us. I've got to say a huge thank you to Elliot. Elliot, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Great to meet you guys. Yeah, thanks, Lee. I really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, mate. Lee Judges, thank you as always, mate.
No problems, no worries. Enjoyed it. Really good conversation. It was an hour and a bit. Flew by.
It did flow by. It did flow by indeed. We're going to be back on Sunday evening after we beat Spurs. Well, hey, let's hope we do anyway. And we can discuss that game and look at the towards the Premier League season game against Brentford. Until then, guys, we will see you next time. Please take care of yourself and each other, and of course, keep supporting the beloved Arsenal. Take care, guys.
It's Lee Judges TV for all my gooners, all my gunners. Yeah, you know where to be. Subscribe to the channel, cause you know it's a lot with the legendary judges and the one damn pot.